G'day guys, Marky in Trousers here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. I do hope you enjoyed today's bloody good episode, and with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie, and let's get right into it, eh? Posted by user Alaska with ADHD, titled, Am I the asshole for how I responded to my fiancé refusing to hyphenate his name? My 24 female, fiancé 29 male, and I are planning to get married in the next couple of months. We're realistic people and understand that arguments are normal in relationships. But recently we've started applying for our marriage license and the topic of last names came up. I said that I wanted both of us to hyphenate so we have matching last names. The reason why is because my last name is important to me as I'm the last one in my family with the name. My partner wasn't comfortable taking my last name, which I understood, but doesn't want to hyphenate his name. I asked him to clarify, thinking he didn't want our names to change, but he told me the women hyphenate their names, not the man. I was confused and clarified that we should both hyphenate, and he refused, saying, "That's not how it works." I asked him to think about it, as it was slightly important to me that we have matching last names. Here's where I think I turned into the asshole. This morning, my fiancé asked me to talk and said he was not changing his name as it made zero sense for him to, and my name wasn't really going to change when I did hyphenate. I was pretty upset, but left it alone. Later in the day, I spoke with him and said that I understand his point of view, but since we couldn't come to an agreement as to matching names, I would just keep my last name as it is now. He got upset with me and said that I was being obtuse, that I know that's not how it works, and we wouldn't be considered married if I didn't hyphenate. I argued that this was the best case scenario, as we wouldn't come to a solution that we were both comfortable with. We're trying to be civil, but it's becoming a sore subject, and we don't want to fill out paperwork while this is all hanging above us. So Reddit, am I the asshole for threatening to keep my last name as is? Edit. I'm adding this because it keeps popping up in the comments. He was raised Christian and his parents are from America. All the women in his family have taken their husbands' names. I was born here and raised Catholic, but my family is Hispanic and migrated here when my mum was 14. Nobody in my family really changed names, but it led to problems like picking up kids from school because everyone had different last names. Despite our upbringings, neither of us are religious whatsoever, and we both have somewhat similar views on politics and such. Also to note, he said the word threatening, not me. I put it in the post because of what he said. In the comments, Andiel Xenon says, "So adding his name to your name isn't really changing your name, but adding your last name to his is? And you're not really married unless you change your name? I think your boyfriend's a little bit unclear on how this whole marriage thing works. Not the asshole. Keep your name and ask yourself what else he won't be willing to compromise on if he can't compromise on this." I didn't change my name when we got married, and my mother-in-law was so worried about how that was going to work. One weak argument she had was that airlines wouldn't know to seat us together. My husband looked her dead in the eyes and said, "If it's a problem that we don't have the same last name, then I'll change mine." The look on her face was priceless. One thing I will say as someone who kept my name when we got married is that border officers have given me some flack at the airport when traveling. One said to me, "How do I know he's not forcing you out of the country against your will?" My response was, "If you knew me at all, you'd know that he wouldn't be able to force me to do anything." He was pretty quiet beyond that, but I've made a point of keeping a copy of my marriage certificate in my wallet and just hand it over with all my other ID. I'm just learning today that my wife and I aren't even considered married. I thought we were married for the last 15 years, but we don't share the same last name. My life is in shambles. Not the asshole. You have to do what you want to do based on reasons that matter to you. He's also allowed to have his preference and opinions on the matter, but it just doesn't happen that way is, in my opinion, a pretty poor rationale to take. Newly married myself, and the wife asked if I'd be okay if she didn't take my name at all, which I was fine with since it's not my name that determines who she is to me or what our relationship is. It's not exactly traditional in any sense, but some arbitrary sets of rules made up who knows how many ages ago are not how I choose to live my life. Not the asshole. And tell him that it is absolutely not how it works. What rulebook is he reading? I doubt that rulebook exists. People do all sorts of things with their names now when they get married. What he's saying is that he wants to stamp his name on you, but he's not going to let you do the same to him. That's a legacy of a man owning a woman, and it is nasty. Yeah, I'm not seeing the word sexist very much in the comments, so I'm just going to say it. Things work how you make them work. OP should think long and hard about whether this is the life that she really wants. I have a feeling that the fiancé is going to try to pull rank on her as the man in the future. Red flag. For me personally, my parents never changed their names when they got married, and that never changed the fact that they were married. Only the divorce did. Very interesting line of thinking from the man in this situation, that he just stonewalls every kind of solution that she gives him, and that it's his way or the highway, and that everyone should just be on board with that. I agree with that last comment. I really do think you should think long and hard about whether this is the life that you really want. What else is going to happen in the future from here if this is a major argument that you can't seem to get past? There was no resolution to it. It's just agree with me, and there is no other solution. Just agree with me. I wish you all the best of luck in the future if you guys aren't able to problem solve big arguments like this. And now, onto the update. Thank you to everyone who commented their thoughts and judgments. I'm sorry it took me so long, but I have an update. Right after the post was made, we had a death in family. We both have been grieving and giving each other space and grace. Recently, we sat down to pay the bills, like we do every month, and I asked if we could talk. He said sure, and I brought up the last name argument and how I felt it went unresolved / had sour feelings remaining. He agreed that it didn't end properly, so we talked. Like all the comments suggested, I dove right in and asked why he had such problems with me keeping my name. He immediately apologized and admitted that he overreacted and acted like a child. He even apologized for calling me obtuse and said that it wasn't appropriate to call me names, no matter what. He said he wasn't sure why it bothered him knowing how important my name is to me, and he didn't communicate that very well. He told me it was 100% my choice if I wanted to keep my name, and that his opinions didn't matter. I then asked about his "that's how it works" comment, and it turns out that this one had a little more reasoning. Turns out because of the previous mentioned passing of the family member, who was ill at the time of the argument took place, he had more contact with his family than he usually tolerates, and you can probably guess where I'm going with this. He had a little birdie on his shoulder telling him that women always take the last name. Not sure who, but I have a couple of guesses. He usually is pretty resistant to this kind of blabbering from his side, but emotions were already high. He once again apologized, even saying he was a major jackass, as I'm not his property. Basically, in general, he apologized for being a jerk and would support whatever I want to do. We did talk a little more and establish how we would discuss frustrating things in the future and about healthy communication, and ended on a very positive note. Now, what I'm sure everyone is wondering what I'm going to end up doing, a couple of comments mentioned how some people replace their middle names with their old last names, and I really loved the idea, so that's what I'm going to do, as it was the option that I was happiest with. We get matching last names, and I get to keep the last name that was so important to me. Once again, thank you to everyone that commented and gave me their 2 cents. In the comments, HammersGirl86 says, so the compromise you were happiest with was him not compromising at all, you giving up your middle name and not keeping your family name in a way that would be passed down at all? How did he manage to convince you that that was any sort of compromise? That's wild. OP says, he didn't. I sat and thought about that option and really liked it. I'm not attached to my middle name whatsoever. I'm actually happy to be rid of it as it's a little old-fashioned, and I'm able to keep the last name with me while still having matching names with him. After thinking about it, I realized I was more upset about me specifically losing the name versus passing it down. How the conversation went was he told me why his situation bothered him, and then at the end, I revealed what I had decided, so zero convincing from his side really happened. If that's how you feel, and you're truly happy, then that's all that matters. You had just specifically mentioned how important it was to pass down the name since you were the last in your line. I wonder if or how your feelings will change if y'all have kids. Hopefully it's up for discussion at that time if you do feel it's important that your family name is passed to the next generation as well as his. OP says, we thought of a couple of different ways to pass on my dad's lineage, which is one of the many reasons I'm so happy for this outcome. Feelings can change at any time, but I'm glad that we're able to discuss them openly. You can do whatever you want, of course, but I don't understand why some people feel like they must take their partner's last name in order to feel properly married. I kept my last name, and I've never felt like my husband and I are somehow less committed. And as for having the same name as your kids arguments, my mom kept her last name, and it was never weird that we didn't share a last name. If anything, it kept the telemarketers at bay because I instantly knew that someone didn't know my mum personally if they were calling for Mrs. ... The best bit of advice that I ever got on the subject of marital surnames: change your name if it's an upgrade. My mother is like, what's the point of getting married if not to change your name? Like, you can do that without getting married. What about tax benefits and inheritance and legal rights? She seriously married my father just to take his shitty last name? I got myself a new name recently. It's so nice to tell people my last name and not need to spell the damn thing out. Is this where the trope of men never wanting to get married comes from? They don't see the point? If you want to be utterly practical, the man and children should take the wife's name if you want to pass the name down the bloodline. Lineage is traced most reliably along the female line, as there is never any question of maternity since the kid is born from the woman. Any man could potentially be the father, and paternity cannot be 100% confirmed without a DNA test. I'm not gonna lie, I was slightly confused too why the conclusion to all of this was that she changed her last name anyway, when that seemed to be the main focus of the original post. But fair enough if that wasn't what was actually on her mind, and she sorted her feelings out about that. At the end of the day, happy wife, happy husband, happy life, no more fighting. This is a very good conclusion to the story, and I'm glad that it's working out for the both of them. Our next post is by user Drive on Acid, titled, I just got a message from my high school crush. I am 42 years old. I graduated from high school in 1998. I had a thing for this guy over 25 years ago. Actually, it was more than just a thing. I was head over heels for him. He had the most beautiful blue eyes. He was one of the cool guys. He had his own apartment and a convertible and a pager. He smelled like a combination of Polo Sport, wintergreen gum, and cigarettes. He listened to Dave Matthews Band, and he worked at Foot Locker. The last time we spoke was in 2007. I have no idea why he contacted me today. Like I said, I graduated from high school over 25 years ago. Maybe he's dated all of the women in our hometown and is now trying to reach out to those of us who have moved away. I have no idea why I'm posting this. I just needed to share this really weird information with people who might understand. It's just so friggin' weird. I would have given anything for him to contact me out of the blue when I was in my 20s, but now, in my 40s, the last thing I want to do is date. At least, I don't want to date him. He has that special honor of being someone who I will always think is perfect because the person I believe him to be is the person I created in my head when I was 15. We'll see if I decide to go meet up with him. I'll let you all know if that happens or not. In the comments, PS Gru says, this is pretty common. I got a similar Facebook message after 30 years. Her timeline history was a bunch of memes about going through a divorce, moving on, and then taking a chance on dreams. My wife and I of nearly 30 years were not amused, and I had to politely say, thanks for reaching out, I wish you well, but no. I think nostalgia comes with this phase of life. I think for people who are out of a multiple decades long relationship, the idea of somebody from your youth is less terrifying than a stranger. Definitely. I know a handful of circle-back happy relationships. You take all the good things in common and add mutual maturity. Can't blame him for trying. My guess would be that he just ended a relationship and got divorced and is reaching out to women from his past to see who's available. I've seen quite a few guys in their 40s do this when they realize how bad the dating pool is. It rarely ends well. My dad passed earlier this year. Within a month, his wife's ex contacted her saying he's heard she's available. Vultures. When my dad died, his buddy from his band came to collect some of his speakers and instruments, and in that process, informed my mother that he will drop by on Christmas and she can bake him a cake. That effing lack of awareness. This might be unpopular actually, and would like to see more posts like this. I really want to talk about the political and cultural issues that affect women, but can we also just gossip? I love low-stakes drama about people that I don't know. Maybe there's another sub for that. OP says, "Thank you. That's all I think I wanted from this post. Some girl talk and gossip. You're right, this is very low-stakes drama. I'm not in any danger, I'm not suffering, it's just a really strange thing that happened." One of my students said, "What? He couldn't ask to hang out in high school? She's only in 7th grade and wise beyond her years." Then she asked me for help on her math homework and explained why her classmates made a bad choice about going outside during class today. It was a very interesting day all around. I do love me some low-stakes drama in this one, and I can see both sides of the coin in this instance. Yes, the dating market is horrendous in this day and age, and the lack of reasonable third spaces has really destroyed a lot of dating prospects that we had back in the day. Here in Australia, I don't really talk to strangers on the street, and I would never really approach someone like that because, in my point of view, it's socially unacceptable. But when I lived in Belfast, the amount of times I'd have strangers just come up and start conversation out of nowhere was insane. And I wonder if that was just the norm back in the day. Did people you'd be sitting on the bus, strike up a conversation, it's all cool, and no one is like, "Get away from me, you freak." People really just be talking to anyone and starting relationships from there. And then, this OP having him reach out, him seeing that dating isn't the same as it was back then. I can't blame the man for trying, and I can't blame OP for feeling creeped out about it either. I just think the world has evolved so very fast, and people that grew up during the time that it was still socially acceptable to just go out and talk to people are suffering some major whiplash when they come into the dating world as it is today. And now onto the update, titled, "Well, this has taken an interesting turn of events. Update on the call that I got from my high school crush." I want to give you all a more complete picture of how massive of a crush this was before I begin. I first saw him when I was in the 7th grade and he was in 9th grade. That was 1994. After about an hour, I was head over heels. My first year of high school, I figured out where he would be and made a point to walk past him as often as possible. In the 10th grade, we had 2 classes together. Somehow we became friends. Probably because I was cute AF and he was a charming flirt. We sort of stayed in touch after he graduated, but I was more than happy to just leave him on that pedestal that I'd put him on in high school. After his message, I called him that evening. We talked for a little bit and then got off the phone. I asked why he contacted me, and he said he saw a post I made on Facebook and just thought about getting in touch. Okay, fine, I'll accept that. For a couple of weeks after that first phone call, 15-year-old me was absolutely in control. I felt like a teenager again, and it was awesome. Here's where things get really interesting. After a few days of texting occasionally, it got to the point of us talking on the phone every day after I get home from work. By the way, I'm a teacher, so I talk to my high school crush every day after school, and I find that hilarious. Then he told me that he really looks forward to talking to me every day. So I started texting "good morning" every morning, and he started texting back. We text every morning while I'm getting ready for work, usually right up until my first class starts. This has been going on for weeks. We tried to get together a couple of times over the past 2 months, but with the holidays, we've both been really busy. Which brings us to tomorrow. He's coming down to my house. I normally wouldn't invite a first date to my house, but I'm making an exception here. Mainly because I've still got quite a bit of baking to do before Christmas, and I really don't want to go out. We're going to order in a pizza and watch movies. I really want to thank all of you who commented on my previous post about how they had met up with someone from their youth when they were older and then met their husband, because I always figured that was just a trope in Hallmark movies. I honestly feel like I'm living in one of those right now, and it's kinda awesome. Updates, it's now Sunday. The high school crush came down to my house on Friday, and he spent the night. I'm planning to make a longer post soon because I know you are all incredibly interested, but I'm visiting family for the holidays. You'll have to wait until Thursday for my update, but I can tell you all that it's really good. And now onto the final update. I'm now dating my high school crush, and he communicates. I haven't been with anybody other than Mr. Right Now for the past 7 years since my fiancé died. He has been single since a very messy breakup with his ex 5 years ago. We are both out of practice with this dating thing. We've also both spent a lot of time and energy on introspection in those years. I know that I'm in a very healthy place to start dating again, and I believe that he is as well. We had a couple of conversations about topics that we both would have probably lied about and hidden in the past from other partners. Instead of doing that, on Saturday, I addressed the topic that I knew was a concern of his directly with him. I was honest and open. The topic was addressed, and we moved on. And then this afternoon, he did the same for me. I even said, "Look at us, healthy communication. We're so grown up." We're both in our 40s. We laughed about it, but then we agreed that poor communication has been an issue in past relationships. There have been a couple of other instances where we have communicated really openly and honestly, and oh my god, it is so sexy. For those of you who are looking for the juicy, salacious details, I'm sorry, I really don't have anything for you yet. We're taking it slow, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to climb him like a tree. We've had a couple of really good makeout sessions, a little under the clothes action. It's funny. I feel like we're moving at teenager speeds. And I'm okay with that. I have the intention of having him in my life for a long time. We will have plenty of time. I'm still nuts about him. I've absolutely told him the extent of my crush. I even played the song that was his song when I was 15 years old. It was a very vulnerable moment. I still smile when he texts and calls. Like, when I just go off the phone with him. However, I've been actively trying to separate the actual person he is from the perfect man that I created in my head when I was a teenager. It's kind of hard because he keeps getting everything right. I am really, really happy. In the comments, Amal Burge says, "I have dreams about my high school crush all the time. None of my exes ever show up in my dreams, but this guy, whom I haven't seen since 2010, is there all the time. I used to be afraid that it was pathetic for him to keep showing up in my subconscious, but this post and these comments are making me see that it's not so weird. The reason that he shows up might be that you never got the chance to resolve your crush for him while you did your exes." And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!